So, you're an EB-5 investor. You've navigated the complex path, you've made the investment, and you're on your way to a new life in the US. It feels like a marathon, right? But what if I told you that getting your green card isn't actually the finish line? Today, we're looking past that initial milestone to the true prize, full US citizenship. Okay, picture this. You've done it. After all the paperwork, the waiting, the significant investment, that green card is finally in your hands. It feels like the end of the road. You can finally just exhale. But hang on, is the journey really over? That one simple question is exactly why we're here, because the answer, well, it might just surprise you.
And that feeling of finality, that huge sigh of relief, that brings us to our first major point, this incredibly common misconception that the green card is the finish line. And look, it's a totally understandable feeling after such a long and demanding process.
Let's be very clear about this. Getting that green card is a monumental achievement. It's the result of years of planning and a massive commitment. But the key here is to reframe it. Think of it like reaching base camp on Mount Everest. It's an absolutely critical milestone, for sure. But the summit, actual citizenship, is still up ahead.
So to really get why the journey isn't over, we have to dig into the heart of the matter. The crucial legal difference between being a resident and being a citizen. You know, in everyday conversation, we might kind of use those terms interchangeably, but legally, they are worlds apart. And this difference changes everything.
So what does that green card actually give you? Well, it's called permanent residency. It's the legal right to live and work anywhere you want in the US indefinitely. And that's incredibly powerful. But it's not absolute. The most important detail here is that this status can be revoked. And that's a vulnerability you really need to understand.
Citizenship, on the other hand, now that is the final destination. It's confirmed by a certificate of naturalization, and the key difference comes down to one powerful word: irrevocable. Once you're a citizen, that status is pretty much permanent. It's the ultimate level of security, and it unlocks a whole new world of rights and protections.
This really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? Think of residency as, well, a bit like a house of cards. It's functional, but it's fragile. It can be taken away. It needs to be renewed. It limits who you can sponsor. Citizenship, though, that's a fortress. It's secure, it's permanent, and it opens the door to sponsoring a much wider range of family, like your parents or siblings. The difference isn't just a legal detail. It's about your long-term peace of mind.
So, if residency isn't the end goal, what does the full journey actually look like? This is where the reality of the timeline can be a real eye-opener. We're not talking about a quick 2 or 3 year process. We're often talking about a full decade, maybe even more. Let's break down how all that time adds up. 7 to 12 years, just let that sink in. That's the typical time frame from the day you make your initial investment to the day you finally take the oath of allegiance. This is truly a marathon, not a sprint, and it requires a strategy that will last for the entire race. All right, let's walk through this timeline. The first 1 to 3 years, that's often just waiting for your initial petition, the I-526E, to get approved. Then you get a 2-year conditional green card. Before that expires, you have to file another petition, the I-829, to prove your investment created the jobs it promised. Only after that gets approved, and you've held your green card for 5 years total, can you finally apply for naturalization. And then the citizenship process itself can take another year or 2. See? Each stage is its own hurdle with its own clock. And this really long journey is precisely why you need to understand the vulnerabilities that come with being a permanent resident. The biggest mistake people make is thinking that once they have the green card, they can just relax. But in reality, this is the time you need to be even more vigilant.
There's a line that captures this idea perfectly. That sense of security can be misleading. It's a powerful reminder that a green card is a permission slip to stay, not an unbreakable bond with the country.
So what are these risks we're talking about? Of course, there's the obvious stuff, like serious criminal activity. But honestly, it's often the less obvious things that trip people up. Things like failing to maintain sufficient ties to the US, or, critically, having that final IA-29 petition denied. Maybe the project didn't create enough jobs. Suddenly, your entire status is in jeopardy. This is what we mean by being vigilant.
And here's one of the biggest pitfalls, especially for global investors: international travel. You have to be so careful here. Spending more than 6 months outside the US can disrupt what's called continuous residence, which you need for citizenship. And if you're gone for more than a year, well, the authorities might just assume you've abandoned your residency altogether.
That could mean your green card is invalid the next time you try to re-enter the country.
Okay, so we've laid out the risks, and it might sound a little daunting, but the good news is you can absolutely guard against them. The key to protecting yourself and your family on this decade-long journey isn't about luck. It's about having a clear, actionable strategy from day one.
So here it is, your citizenship strategy, a simple 4-part plan to keep you on track. First, become a master record keeper. Log every single trip you take outside the country. Second, treat your U.S. taxes as non-negotiable. File correctly, on time, every single year, because they will be checked. Third, don't just invest and forget about it. Stay on top of your EB-5 project to make sure it's hitting those crucial job creation targets. And finally, number 4, don't wait until the last minute to prepare for the citizenship tests. Start studying early and make that final step as smooth as possible.
And that brings us to our final and most important question. You put an incredible amount of thought and strategy into your initial financial investment, right? But is your long-term immigration plan just as solid? Because in this marathon, a solid financial plan only gets you to base camp. It's the solid immigration strategy that gets you all the way to the summit.